Most people think an RV is safety on wheels. A locked door. Thick walls. A little home that follows you anywhere. But out on the road, when you're far from towns, far from cell service, and the weather turns ugly, your RV can start feeling less like shelter, and more like a trap. Tonight, these are 4 stories people swear are true. And if you've ever camped during a storm, you might recognize the sound of fear hiding under rain. I used to think storms made people paranoid. Wind hits the side of a trailer, branches scrape the roof, and your brain starts turning random noise into footsteps. That's what I told my girlfriend, Danny, when we took my uncle's old RV up into the mountains. It was supposed to be simple. One night. A little rain. A quiet spot off a forest road that I found online. We weren't trying to go deep into the wild, just far enough to see the sky without city lights. But the weather changed faster than the forecast. By the time we got there, the clouds were low and heavy. The trees were bending like they were tired. And the air smelled sharp, like wet dirt and pine. We parked in a small clearing. Not a campsite. No signs. No fire ring. Just a flat patch of ground where other people had clearly parked before. Danny didn't like it right away. "This feels wrong," she said. I laughed a little. "It's a clearing in the woods. It's supposed to feel like woods." She didn't laugh back. She was staring at the tree line like she was waiting for something to step out. We went through the usual setup. Level the RV, check the doors, close the blinds. A quick dinner. Then we sat in the little dining area listening to the rain start tapping the roof. It was cozy for about 20 minutes. Then the tapping changed. Not the roof. The side. 3 quick knocks. I froze with my drink halfway to my mouth. Danny's eyes snapped to the window. The knocks came again, same pattern. 3 quick knocks. Then nothing. I stood up and leaned toward the door. "Probably a branch," I said, but my voice sounded thin. "There aren't branches that low," Danny whispered. I didn't want to open the blinds. Something about that felt like an invitation. So I did what a lot of people do when they're scared and trying not to show it. I acted annoyed. I turned on the outside light with the switch near the door and waited. The rain kept falling. The woods stayed quiet. "No one's out there," I said, sitting back down. Danny didn't move. She looked like she was listening hard enough to hear thoughts. We tried to distract ourselves with a movie. The RV rocked gently with the wind. The storm got heavier, rain pounding the roof in a steady roar. That's when the knocks came again. But this time, they were on the back of the RV. Not the side. 3 knocks. Danny grabbed my arm. Her nails dug in. I muted the movie. We listened. The rain covered most sounds, but I swear I heard something else, like slow movement in wet grass. I leaned forward and whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Then 3 knocks again. Closer. This time on the side, right by our table. It felt like whoever, or whatever, was outside had walked around and found us. Danny's voice shook. "Don't talk to it. It's probably a person," I said. "A person walking around in this storm?" I didn't have an answer for that. I stood up again, trying to be brave. I went to the front window and carefully pulled the blind up a half-inch. Outside was a smear of darkness and rain. The beam from our outside light cut through some of it, shining onto mud and tall grass. No one. But the weird part was, the grass right next to the RV was flattened. Like something had been standing there close enough to touch the wall. I dropped the blind back down so fast it snapped. Danny whispered, "What did you see?" "Nothing," I said, then immediately regretted it. Because nothing was scarier than a guy in a raincoat. The knocks didn't come for a while after that. We sat there listening to the storm and trying to pretend we were fine, but we weren't. Danny kept glancing at the door. I kept checking the locks even though I'd already checked them twice. Around midnight the power flickered. The lights dimmed, came back, dimmed again. Then the RV went quiet. No hum of the fridge. No fan. No movie. Just rain and wind. Danny looked at me like I had caused it personally. "Backup battery," I said, forcing confidence. "We'll be fine." But then, we heard something else. A slow scrape along the side of the RV. Like a fingernail. Or a piece of metal being dragged. It moved from the back toward the front. Slow. Patient. Danny covered her mouth. I could see her breathing hard through her fingers. The scrape stopped near the door. And then 3 knocks. Right on the door. Not the wall. Not the back. The door. I backed up without thinking, bumping into the table. Danny whispered, "Please don't open it." I wasn't going to. But my body still felt like it had to do something, like standing still would be the same as losing. The door handle jiggled. Just a little. Then again. Like someone testing it, calm and sure. Then the knocks returned, still 3 at a time, like a habit. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find quickly, which was a small metal flashlight. Not impressive, but it made me feel less empty-handed. "Go to the bathroom," I whispered to Danny. "Lock it." She didn't argue. She moved fast, like she'd been waiting for permission. The handle jiggled harder. Then stopped. Everything stopped. Even the wind seemed to calm for a second, like the storm was holding its breath too. I stood there staring at the door, sweat on my palms, listening to the rain slide down the windows. Then came a sound I still can't explain. A voice. Right outside the door. But it wasn't shouting over the storm. It wasn't calling for help. It was quiet. Like it was right up close to the door, mouth near the crack. And it said my name. My full name. I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. The voice was calm. Almost bored. "Open up." I backed away slowly, shaking my head without meaning to. From the bathroom, Danny whispered, "Who is it?" I didn't respond to her either, because I couldn't. My throat felt sealed. Outside, the voice said my name again. Then 3 knocks. Then softer. "I know you're in there." I looked down at the lock. It was still turned. Still locked. But then the handle moved again, slow, like whoever held it wasn't frustrated at all. Like they had time. Like they could wait. Then the scraping started again, but this time it wasn't along the wall. It was on the steps. Like someone dragging something up the metal steps to the door. I heard the little groan of the steps. The weight of someone standing there. Right against the door. And then, a wet sound. Like something pressed itself to the door. Breathing. Danny was crying quietly in the bathroom. I stood there frozen, staring at a thin line of darkness under the door, expecting to see feet. I never saw feet. But I did see something else. A shadow moved under the crack, too thin, too stretched, like it didn't match a human body standing on the other side. Then it slid away. The outside light clicked off. Not flickered. Clicked. Like someone flipped it. Now we had nothing but darkness and the sound of rain. And then we heard the knocks again. But not from outside. From inside the RV. 3 knocks. On the wall behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Nothing was there. Just the cabinets. The small window. The closed blind. 3 knocks again, this time from the bathroom door. Danny screamed. I rushed forward and yanked it open, and Danny stumbled out, white-faced. It knocked, she gasped. It knocked from the inside. The RV shifted suddenly, like a hard gust hit it. Or like someone shoved it. Then the knocking started everywhere at once, rapid, chaotic, not in the neat pattern anymore. On the walls. The ceiling. The cabinets. It sounded like hands all around us. We didn't think. We just moved. I grabbed the keys and we stumbled to the front. I didn't even check outside. I didn't care if someone was standing in front of the RV. I turned the key. Nothing. I turned again. The engine coughed, then died. The knocking became a violent pounding. Danny screamed, "Go!" I turned the key again and again, hard hammering. Finally, the engine caught. The RV roared to life. And the knocking stopped instantly. Like someone had turned it off. I threw it into gear and drove. No headlights at first, just dark road and rain, Danny sobbing beside me. When the headlights finally came on, I looked in the mirror. And I saw something behind us in the clearing. Not a person. Not an animal. Just a tall shape in the rain, perfectly still. Watching. I drove until we reached a main road. We didn't stop until we found a gas station with bright lights and people inside. We never went back. The next day, I checked my phone. No service had been up there. No signal at all. But I had a voicemail. A single voicemail. From my own number. It was only a few seconds long. And all it contained was 3 knocks. I heard this one from a guy I worked with, named Marco. He was the type who didn't talk much, but when he did you listened. Not because he was loud, because he was careful. He told me this story after I mentioned RV camping. He didn't smile. He just said, "Don't park where you don't see other people." Then he told me why. A few years back, he and his younger brother, Luis, took a cheap RV trip up the coast. They didn't have much money, so they avoided official campgrounds. They slept at rest stops, random pull-offs, anywhere they wouldn't get chased out. One night a storm hit. They were somewhere between towns, and the rain got so heavy it blurred the world into gray. Marco said it felt like driving through a waterfall. So when they saw a narrow road with a small sign that said Scenic Viewpoint, they turned in. The road climbed into trees. The rain got quieter under the branches, but the wind got worse. The RV rattled and squeaked. Finally the road opened into a wide gravel lot. Empty. No cars. No lights. No bathrooms. Nothing. Luis said. Perfect. Marco didn't like it. He couldn't explain why. It was just that empty lots at night didn't feel like luck. They felt like traps. But the storm made the decision for them. The main road was too dangerous. So they parked. They ate chips for dinner and watched the rain smear down the windows. The trees beyond the headlights looked like a wall. Marco said that was the first strange thing. Even when they turned the headlights off, The trees still looked lit. Not bright. Just faintly visible, like there was a low glow in the woods. Louise thought it was the moon, but Marco said there was no moon. Then they heard a generator. A low, steady hum. Marco leaned forward and listened. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Louise shrugged. "Another RV?" But if another RV was there, where were the lights? Marco cracked the blind, just slightly. At the far end of the lot, near the tree line, there was an RV. Old and long, like a big vintage model. No lights on. No movement. But the hum continued. Marco said it didn't make sense. If the generator was running, you'd expect at least one small light. Louise didn't care. He was tired. He lay down. Marco tried to do the same. Around 2 a.m., Marco woke up because the RV felt different. The air felt colder. Heavy. Like the heater had shut off. He sat up. And realized the rain had stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Silence outside. The generator hum from the other RV was still there. Marco got up and walked to the front window. The old RV was closer now. Not by a little. By a lot. It was halfway across the lot, pointed directly at them like it had lined itself up. Marco stood there, confused, trying to make his brain work. Maybe it had rolled? But the ground was flat. Maybe someone moved it? But it was dead silent outside. He turned to wake Louise. That's when he heard the knock. 3 knocks. On their RV's side window near the front. Marco didn't move. Louise, half asleep, mumbled, "What?" The knocks came again. 3. Then a pause. Then a scratch, slow and careful, like a fingernail tracing the window frame. Marco whispered, "Don't answer." Louise sat up now, fully awake. "Who is that?" Louise called out, louder than he should have. The scratching stopped. The generator hum from the other RV got louder. And then the voice came. Not from outside their RV. From the other RV across the lot. A voice through a speaker. Crackly and old. Like a busted intercom. It said, "You're in our spot." Louise laughed nervously. "What the hell?" Marco whispered. "Don't engage." The speaker voice continued, slow and calm. "You're in our spot. Come apologize." Louise said. "No." The voice paused, like it was thinking. Then, "Come apologize." Marco felt his skin crawl. It wasn't the words. It was how flat it sounded, like it wasn't a person being rude. It sounded like a recording. Like a message that played no matter what you said. Marco tried the engine. The RV started, but it coughed like it didn't want to. He threw it into reverse. The moment the reverse lights came on, the other RV's headlights snapped on too. Bright and white. And in that sudden light, Marco saw something in the windshield of the other RV. Faces. Not one. Many. Pressed against the glass. Still. Pale and blurry like fogged windows, but shaped like people packed tight inside. Louise saw it too and swore under his breath. Marco hit the gas to back up. Their tires spun on wet gravel. The other RV's speaker crackled again. "Come apologize." Then the old RV began to move. Not fast. But steady. Rolling forward without any visible driver. Heading straight toward them. Marco couldn't get traction. He shifted forward instead, trying to swing around. The old RV adjusted. It turned slightly too, matching them, still lining up like it had practiced. Louise started shouting now. Go! Go! Marco slammed the pedal and the RV lurched forward, skidding. The old RV accelerated. The generator hum rose into a deep, angry roar. And the faces behind the windshield, Marco said they didn't move like living people. They didn't react. They just stayed pressed there, watching, as if they were part of the RV itself. Marco finally got control and shot toward the lot's exit. The old RV followed. As they raced down the narrow road, Marco glanced in the mirror and saw the headlights behind them, too close. Then the speaker voice came again, somehow still audible, crackling through the storm air. You're in our spot. The road was tight, trees on both sides. If Marco messed up, they'd flip. He pushed harder anyway. And then, right before the turn that led back to the main road, the old RV's headlights went out. Not like they turned. Like they vanished. 1 second bright, the next second nothing. Marco almost stopped. His brain screamed that if the lights were gone, the RV was gone. But Luis yelled, "Don't stop!" So Marco didn't. They burst out onto the main road and kept driving until they saw a town. When the sun came up, they checked the map for that viewpoint. It wasn't there. No scenic pull-off. No gravel lot. Marco searched online later. He even drove the route again months after, in daylight. He found the road. But it didn't lead to a viewpoint. It led to a dead end, blocked by a gate and a sign that said, "Road closed, unsafe conditions." And underneath, in smaller letters, "Area used for emergency recovery." Marco asked a local about it. The local said years ago, a tour RV lost control during a storm, went off that road, and crashed. A lot of people died. Marco asked where the RV ended up. The local looked confused and said, "They never recovered it. It was too broken. They cut it apart." Marco didn't tell him what he saw. But months later, Luis called him late at night, voice shaking. He said, "I got a voicemail." Marco asked, "From who?" Luis whispered, "From an unknown number." Then he said, "It's just that crackly voice." And before Marco could speak, Luis repeated the words, very quietly. "You're in our spot. Come apologize." This story comes from a woman named Renee. She posted it in a small travel group, but she wrote it like she was trying to get it out of her body before it rotted inside her. Renee traveled alone in a small RV after her divorce. She said the road made her feel like she belonged to herself again. Until the night she stopped at a place that wasn't meant to be a campground. A storm warning popped up on her phone, hard rain, possible tornado conditions. She didn't want to drive through it. So she looked for somewhere safe and found a sign off the highway. Storm shelter, 2 miles. She followed the arrows down a back road that led to an old concrete building. There was a gravel area beside it, big enough for a few vehicles. No other cars. No other RVs. But the building looked solid, low and thick, like it had been there for decades. The kind of place that survives weather. The door was locked, but there was a covered porch area and a flat spot to park nearby. Renee decided she'd sleep in the RV and stay close in case things got worse. The storm hit hard after midnight. Thunder shook the RV. Rain slammed the roof like handfuls of rocks. The wind howled and changed pitch like it was trying different ways to get inside. Renee said she kept waking up because the RV felt like it was breathing, tightening and loosening with each gust. Then she heard someone outside. Not footsteps exactly, More like wet dragging. She sat up, heart pounding, and listened over the storm. It came again. Drag, pause, drag. Like something heavy being pulled across gravel. She looked out through a small gap in the curtain. The porch light on the storm shelter building was on, dim and yellow. In that weak light, she saw a shape near the building. A person hunched over, facing away. She couldn't see their face. They were dragging something long behind them. At first, Renee thought it was a tarp or a branch. Then the lightning flashed. And she saw it was hair. Long hair, trailing across the ground. Attached to something, or someone, she couldn't fully make out. Renee's body went cold. She pulled back from the window, hands shaking. She told herself it was her mind. Shadows and lightning. Then came the knock. 3 knocks. On her RV door. Renee didn't answer. Another 3 knocks. Then a woman's voice, faint over the storm. "Let me in." Renee said the voice sounded wrong. Not like a person in trouble. More like someone repeating a line they'd memorized. Renee stayed silent. The voice came again, clearer. "Let me in," Renee whispered. "Go away." The voice paused. Then, very softly, "I can't." 3 knocks. Then the dragging sound again, moving away. Renee didn't sleep after that. She sat with her phone and tried to keep signal. At around 3 a.m., she saw movement outside again. This time, the porch light illuminated 2 shapes. One standing. One lower to the ground. And then she realized what she was looking at. The lower shape was a person on their hands and knees. The upper shape held their hair like a leash. Renee's stomach turned. She covered her mouth so she wouldn't make noise. The standing figure turned toward her RV slowly. And even from that distance, Renee could feel it noticing her. The figure didn't rush. Didn't panic. Didn't act surprised. It just started walking toward her, dragging the crawling person behind it. Renee grabbed her keys, ready to start the engine. But then, all at once, the crawling person lifted their head and looked directly at Renee's window. Lightning flashed again, and Renee saw the face. The face was swollen and wet, like it had been submerged too long. The eyes were open but unfocused, like they weren't seeing anymore. And the mouth opened wide, not to scream, but to smile. Renee said that smile didn't look human. It looked like the face was remembering how to be a face. The standing figure reached Renee's RV and stopped at the door. 3 knocks. The crawling person crawled closer, still smiling. Then the standing figure spoke. Not the woman's voice from before. A man's voice this time. Very calm. "We can ride out the storm together." Renee backed away, shaking her head, tears spilling. "I'm fine," she whispered. The man's voice stayed calm. "No, you're not." The handle moved. Slow. Testing. Then the crawling person made a sound. Like a laugh mixed with a wet cough. Renee turned the ignition. The engine sputtered once. Outside, the man's voice said, "Don't." The engine sputtered again. The crawling person pressed their face to the window. Renee screamed. She couldn't stop it. The face on the other side of the glass smiled wider, then mouthed something. Renee said she could read the words clearly. "Let me in." The engine finally started. Renee threw it into gear and jolted forward. The crawling person's head snapped back as the RV moved, but they didn't fall away like a normal person would. They moved with it, like they were stuck to the window for a second. Then they slid off and disappeared into the rain. Renee sped back to the highway, white-knuckled, sobbing, driving in near-zero visibility because she couldn't stop. At the next town, she went to the police station. She told them about the storm shelter, the people, the dragging. The officer listened quietly, then asked for the location. When she showed him, his face changed. He said, "Ma'am, that building hasn't been used as a shelter in years." Renee insisted she saw the light on. The officer shook his head. "It doesn't have power," Renee said. "Then who was out there?" The officer didn't answer right away. He just said, "Can you come back in the morning and show us?" Renee agreed, because she needed someone to see it with her. But the next morning, when she drove back with 2 officers, the building was there. The gravel lot was there. But there was no porch light. No footprints. No drag marks. And the door, according to the officer, had been welded shut. Renee stared at the thick metal seam. She felt dizzy. One of the officers said, "This is an old recovery site. People used to bring storm debris here." Renee asked, "What about missing persons?" The officer avoided her eyes and said, "We've had reports around here." Then he told her something she still hears in her sleep. "People say, during storms, this place attracts the wrong kind of company." Renee left. She never went back. But she said sometimes, on stormy nights, her RV door will rattle gently, like someone is testing it. And once in a while, over the sound of rain, she'll hear 3 knocks. Not from outside. From the inside wall behind her bed. This last story happened to a couple named Jason and Mel. They were documenting their RV life online, nothing huge, just small videos for friends. They were parked at a quiet lakeside pull-off one evening, planning to leave early the next morning. A storm rolled in after dark. The lake turned black. The wind pushed ripples like rough hands across the surface. They decided to stay put. The road out was narrow, surrounded by trees, and Mel didn't want to drive it in heavy rain. So they locked up, turned on a small lamp, and tried to make it cozy. Around 11 p.m., Mel heard something outside and asked Jason to check. Jason looked through the side window. He saw a man standing a few feet from the RV. No umbrella. No coat. Just a thin shirt, soaked through, clinging to him. He stood under their awning like he belonged there. Jason opened a small window crack, just enough to speak. "Hey," Jason called. "Are you okay?" The man didn't look up. He was staring at the RV steps. Jason asked again, louder. "Do you need help?" Slowly, the man lifted his head. His face was pale in the porch light, eyes wide and glassy. And he smiled. Not friendly. More like he was pleased they noticed him. Then he said very calmly, "Can I come in?" Mel whispered, "No." Jason hesitated, because the man looked cold, soaked, and wrong in a way he couldn't name. Jason said, "Sorry, no. There's a town back that way." The man's smile stayed. He didn't blink. He said, "I don't like the town." Jason swallowed. "We can call someone for you." The man tilted his head slightly like a curious animal. Then he said, "I don't like phones either." Mel reached for her phone anyway. "No service." Jason said, "Look, we can't let you in." The man's smile faded. His face went blank. And then he stepped closer, so close Jason could see water dripping off his eyelashes. He placed his hand on the RV door. and tapped it 3 times. Then he whispered, like it was a secret meant only for them. "I'm already in." Mel's eyes filled with tears instantly. Jason tried the door lock again even though it was locked. The man outside walked away, slowly, disappearing into the dark past the edge of their light. Jason and Mel stood there listening, confused, terrified, waiting for him to come back. Minutes passed. Then they heard something under the RV. A soft thump. Then a scrape. Like someone crawling beneath them. Jason grabbed a flashlight and aimed it at the floor vents. He thought he saw movement, shadows shifting where shadows shouldn't shift. Mel whispered, "Jason, something's under us." Jason didn't want to look outside. But he did. He aimed the flashlight through the window toward the ground near the steps. The beam caught mud, rain, and the edge of the awning pole. And then it caught something else. Bare feet. Standing on the RV steps. Jason's chest tightened. He slowly raised the beam. But the steps were empty. No legs. No body. Just bare feet placed neatly on the step, as if someone invisible was standing there. Mel made a small choking sound behind him. Then the feet moved. 1 step up. Then the next. Jason backed away, shaking, flashlight trembling. The RV door handle turned. Slowly. Mel started praying under her breath, repeating the same words over and over. Jason shouted, "Stop! Leave!" On the other side of the door, something breathed. A long inhale. Then an exhale that sounded almost satisfied. Then the voice came again, not from outside, but from inside the RV, right behind Mel's shoulder. Soft. Warm. Close. "Can I come in?" Mel screamed and spun around, but no one was there. Jason rushed to her, both of them shaking, pressing together like that could stop whatever was happening. The RV rocked slightly, like something shifted weight inside it. The cabinet above the sink popped open by itself. A plate slid out and shattered on the floor. The lamp flickered. Then 3 knocks came from the bathroom door. Mel sobbed, "We have to go!" Jason ran to the front seat and turned the key. The engine started immediately, like it had been waiting. He threw it into gear, not caring about the awning, not caring about anything. As the RV lurched forward, something slammed into the side, hard enough to make the whole wall bow inward. Mel screamed again. Jason looked in the mirror. In the glow of their taillights, he saw the man again, standing perfectly still in the rain. Only now he wasn't smiling. He was frowning, like a child denied a toy. And around him, in the darkness just beyond the light, Jason saw other shapes. Not clear. Not fully human. But watching. Waiting. They drove until the storm weakened and the sky began to lighten. Later that day, they stopped at a mechanic because the RV door wouldn't shut properly anymore. The frame had been bent inward, like something had tried to force it. The mechanic asked, "What hit you?" Jason didn't answer. He just watched the mechanic work. And when the mechanic finally got the door aligned, he frowned and said, "That's weird." Jason asked, "What?" The mechanic pointed at the inside edge of the door frame. There were 3 indentations. Not dents from outside impact. Indentations from inside pressure. Like someone had knocked from inside the RV, with something hard. 3 times. Storms make the world smaller. They trap you in whatever shelter you chose, and they hide whatever is moving out there in the dark. And sometimes, They make it easier for something to get close without being seen. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.